Thank you for joining me. I'm Sally Cocker and this is Progression Beyond Doubt podcast. So, this is ahead of the preparation recording that I did for you, talking about the neurological pathways and how the brain introduces change or how it resists change in a normal pattern of behaviour. And this particular podcast is going to look at how we can implement change. This is going to be the first step, and I will apologise ahead of this. This will become quite deep. It probably will be quite what I call out there for many of you. I apologise, please do bear with it. There will be a point at the end of it. There's a very important reason why I do go off on a tangent regarding it. It's because of human behaviour, why you will resist it. It's also a society element, and it will also be regarding your upbringing, your belief systems. There's no religious element to this, so it's safe for anybody to listen to. You will be able to refer it to any of your own individual belief systems. So please don't worry if it starts to sound like there may be a religious element. There really isn't. So I'd like to start today just by really looking at the reasons why we feel as human beings we want to change. And this is generally something which is stuck in all of our DNA, because we are creatures which require evolution. We require progression, and we always feel there's something better out there. That's just an instinctive DNA evolution element to us. We're human beings. We are made up of cells, and within those cells are their own intelligence system to each of our cell. So you have a brain within each individual cell. Now, each individual brain has the ability to think about what they want to be doing, what they should be doing, how they're going to achieve that. Now, if you can imagine that being at play with how many cells are within a human body, there's a lot of intelligence going on in there. Now, put that together with what we take in, like I discussed in the earlier podcast, what we take in within our senses, our eyes, what we hear, what we feel, and what we touch, and just how we feel in general about the information we are receiving within our own worlds. Our cells then respond to that information. So I'm a big believer in not putting in too much negative. So for me, I don't watch the news, I don't listen to the news. Now and again, I may catch up on a story that I may have heard in the background or somebody's commented on, and I may take an interest in that story. So it isn't that I don't read up on general knowledge, but something I'm a big believer in is the amount of junk that we put in, which is literally useless to our basic human needs. So as my clients know, when somebody starts to struggle with anxieties, depressions, and etc., certainly conditions of the nervous system, I will try and introduce them not listening to the news first thing in the morning or last thing at night, because our central nervous system will respond to that information we're taking in. Now, I need to be very careful about trying to make this as basic as possible and as easy listening as possible for you. So to just simplify that, if you are listening to a news broadcast programme first thing in the morning when you get up at the beginning of your day, and you listen to a news broadcast of a missing child, just to take an example. This young child has gone missing and there's a mass police hunt for this child. You are taking in that information, so your brain is processing that as something which needs to be activated. You need to act upon that information because you're receiving it. And all the brain is designed to do is to come up with answers for you. So you're listening to a program of a young child over in America which has gone missing. First and foremost, your brain will deliver the message to the central nervous system to see how it feels about it, to basically put it out there. And the central nervous system will then look for what it can do in response to what the brain's asking of it. So, for example, most of us will generally go to, that's terrible news, I wonder where the girl can be, I wonder who's done this, I wonder whether the girl's alive. And we go through a process of society-built mechanisms. And this is a general, and not to be too disrespectful to our human race, but as human beings we may think we're the most intelligent of the bunch when actually we're really quite stupid. And that goes to what I'm trying to say by that is, if you think about what we have available to us, we are built to be the most intelligent. But actually what a human being does with what we have is quite stupid. So if I go back to the example of the child, we have an intelligence system that looks for answers. So we've decided at the beginning of our day to listen to the world news. Who else on the planet, what else on the planet takes in their environment from hundreds of thousands of miles away from them? Do you see a tiger sitting there wondering how the polar bears are getting on? Do you have a sunflower sitting there wondering how the oak tree is doing 4,000 miles away? They just don't. And yes, they don't have the human intelligence in place, but actually that human intelligence isn't being used to its full potential. We don't activate certain parts of the brain or the intelligence system by any stretch of the imagination. So when we're listening to the news, what on earth are we doing setting our day up with a problem that we have no control over? So your body then sits in a fight or flight mode. And most of us will have heard of the fight or flight mode. So once the brain has activated the central nervous system, your body then goes into either, do I run away from this problem? Do I freeze? Or can I respond? Now, all of those processes are utterly useless for you for the day ahead of you. Yes, it's a very, very sad process that children are being taken, but what can you do about a child being taken in America? There's not a lot you can do. So I think what it's more about is us being more intelligent with the information we're taking in. What would be more useful is to listen to the local news, because if a child was missing locally, can we do anything about it? Potentially yes. So actually, if we are going to listen to news, let's make it more useful to us. Let's make that news about something that we can respond to, but make it very local. Make it the local news for your village, your city. Now, even then, personally speaking, and from a life coach perspective, I still think no news is good news. So for me, it's a zero tolerance at the beginning of the day and the end of the day. Because if you listen to that broadcast about that girl going missing in America and then go to sleep on that information, your central nervous system's been activated. And just because you're falling asleep or trying to go to sleep, does that mean your overriding sense is going to switch off because, oh look, it's 10 p.m, I need to go to sleep now? Absolutely, categorically not. We go into overdrive, which then prevents us from being able to sleep. And even if we are lucky enough to go to sleep, the central nervous system's still working and it's still responding to what you've taken in during the day. So my core message for you on New Year's Eve or on the day of change or the day of progression, beyond any doubt, for you personally, is we need to start becoming more intelligent on what we are putting in to our brains. We are a highly functioning being on the planet, and we have to respond in that way. We have got more access to information around the world than we ever have had. We have instant gratification on every level in all we do day to day. If once upon a time, if you wanted to read a book, think of the process we had to go through 20 years ago if we wanted to read a book. If we were lucky, we had it on the bookshelf. So we'd access it and read it, page by page, physically, turn the page. We would maybe not have it in, but we'd maybe go down to the library. So what did we have to do? We had to wait for the library to be open. So we could process the information on what we are about to do. We're about to read a book, but we'd process it on a slower basis. So we are preparing ourselves to read a book. Now, nowadays, we don't have that, because if we want to listen to music, if we want to be able to contact a friend, if we want to be able to have a rant at somebody that's upset us, we have an immediate and instant accessibility to that need. Now, as amazing and as intellectual as that is for us, and believe me, there are many, many benefits to having instant gratification to certain things, but actually as a human race, we're not caught up on that yet. Because remember, we're designed to go out, hunt for food, clock the beast over the head, drag it back, prepare it for a meal. That's obviously evolution has taken us away from that. But what we have to remember is the basic function of the human is not towards instant gratification, because we are designed where we can prepare. We have a design that instant gratification is not always the right way, because we have to process that first. So if you're hungry, for example, and you walk to the fridge and you decide, I'm going to have sausages, straight into the grill or straight into the microwavable meal, 2 minutes, there's my meal. Eat it, no time to think, no time to wonder whether, actually, do I want sausages? We have so much available to us now in such a short period of time that actually we're not making the right choices for us. So if we were to look in the fridge, normally what you'll find is if you're hungry, you'll pick anything that's in the fridge. This is where the huge multi-billion-pound food industry makes its living from, because it's again about instant gratification. We know if we're hungry and if we have raw meat and we have vegetables that need cooking, or if we might have a pizza in there, or we may have some hot dogs or a packet of crisps or a bun, which ones, if we feel we're starving hungry, obviously we're actually not starving, which ones are we more inclined to go for if we are hungry? In an instant gratification world, we're more likely to go for something that's not good for us. Now, this is because we are redesigning ourselves as human beings. And this is where the damage is being done within our Western society. And this is the message we're giving ourselves, because the more we provide ourselves with instant gratification, the more we need it. And the next thing we need, so I'm thirsty, what do I have? I have a can of Coke. I'm going to open that can of Coke because I like it. And it's instant gratification because you get an instant sugar hit, you get an instant caffeine hit, and you like the taste of it because you've developed an addiction to it. So what do we go for? Instant gratification. Now, what we're actually doing is we're actually doing this within the mind. And this is where the importance of this message ahead of the progression beyond doubt. We need to slow our decision making down considerably. We need to make more intelligent choices on a different timescale. Now, we currently, as I talked about in the previous recording, we've designed ourselves neurological pathways. Now, these neurological pathways, and I will get back to the point I was making earlier, these neurological pathways are triggering from a thought in our head. So we are instantly looking for the immediate answer. So what we're not inclined to do anymore is think, well, actually, I know the best answer isn't to instantly gratify myself, but that's what I need right now. So what I will do is I will suppress my need, I will suppress the fight or flight response, and I will gratify myself so my nervous system calms down. Because once you gratify yourself, and the quicker you gratify yourself, the quicker the pain of the fight or flight response will go away. So going back to the child, and the child being missing in America, and you're listening to that news, you've switched it on first thing in the morning, your flight or fight response has released, because that's what we're designed to do. So your brain is asking the central nervous system, how do I respond to this? What do I do intellectually to respond to this problem? Now, you can't jump on a flight and go and help with the search for the child because it's just not accessible. So what else have we got available to us? Well, we don't. So what you look to do is instantly gratify that uneasy feeling inside yourself with something that you can do. So a lot of people will eat for instant gratification. Some people may have a cigarette. Some people may take a drug. There is another instant gratification which we do, and this is a more common one for human beings, is what we do is we worry. Now that is as much of a drug as is can of Coke, cigarettes, food, etc. The worry, what we do is we feel we should be responding, but we can't physically respond. So the brain's saying to the central nervous system, what are we doing about it? Well, we're feeling bad about it, aren't we? So the central nervous system is activated and anxiety starts. Because what anxiety does is it releases hormones in your system, which act as a drug. And that is your body's natural mechanism to tell you, I'm responding to what you're asking of me. So it's very, very important, and it's the most crucial point of all of this program, that what you put in to your mind, your mouth, your soul, your feelings, your eyes, and what you listen to has to be the key to the success of what you're about to do. Now, what I do want to ask of you is, I want to ask for a promise to yourself that the one element you will not do is whatever you've already done before. I've had a number of conversations about this with people recently, and what we all go to is what's worked for us. And funnily enough, the most bizarre one of all for me are diet programs. Because we have Slimming World, we have shakes, we've got all of these huge pyramid schemes which work on the basis of losing weight. And all of these companies drive on the fact that other people have had success, and probably you have too. Now, I would like for anybody that is looking to start a diet program just not to start it just yet. That's not to say that we shouldn't be eating healthily, we shouldn't be following some, because there are some diet programs out there which are based on healthy food. But what I want you to do is I want you to tap into your basic human ability. I want you to trust yourself. You have what is needed to achieve the goal you want to achieve. You already possess it. When I coach people, and I coach people successfully, and you may have read my reviews, you may have spoken to somebody which has recommended me, they all say, I don't know what it is about Sally. She just does something. That's because I actually don't do anything. What I do is I facilitate the client in front of me to recognise and realise their own potential in themselves. I don't hold the answers. I carry the pen, and I hand you the pen, but it's you that writes your story. So the pen I'm going to hand you on today's programme is something which will feel too basic. But I need you to trust in a new process. Because if you are in your second week or second month or second year, or what feels like second lifetime of trying to break a habit, we can categorically accept between ourselves that hasn't worked. It may have worked temporarily, but if it's not working long term, it's not working. This is the one biggest key to all answers in your life story. People think because they get a short-term gain, it must mean it works. It doesn't work. So I want to work with you today to wipe your slate totally clean of everything you've done in the past. And I'm talking everything. This is about progress. And there's nothing about progress that's fast. And if you gain an instant gratification from anything you're doing on this program, this isn't going to work either. Because what we're not going to access is your fight or flight response. So if you go on to Slimming World, or if you go and purchase a gym membership, or if you set yourself 3 days a week at the gym, the day you face that and you don't want it, you go into fight or flight mode, because your body is looking at how it can rescue you, how it can keep you alive. That's what we are designed to do, keep ourselves alive. Now, if you then panic because you can't have a bar of chocolate, you access your fight or flight mode. And we have to prevent that from happening. Now, when I say basic, I am talking basic. My recording tomorrow will actually be coming, but this recording and this program will actually be coming weekly. Because a daily recording is not necessarily going to be helping the clients which I have activated within this program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another recording tomorrow for you on the 1st of January, or whatever date it is you're listening. It will then be every 7 days. And that will be for at least 7 weeks. And I reach out to you to just try to stick to plan. It will not work if you run away with your usual pattern of behaviour. You will think the work I'm giving you to do is too little, you can do more than that, I'm more than capable of doing more than drinking a water every morning, Sally. But your brain is taking on the usual response system. And at some point, you will hit fight or flight. Game over. So I ask of you to trust in the process. Now, what I'd like you to do is at some point today, and this is where the information I've given you on the just getting either a diary, a book, you can get a life coaching book if you so wish, whatever it may be, with ideally a page a day, but you don't need a page a day, because a page a day will require a little bit of writing. So if you get yourself a diary or a book or pieces of paper or whatever, I would like you at some point today, and I'm going to, at the end of this session, just do you a little bit of a tool to use for anxiety or for a fight or flight response to a situation. And I want you to be able to use this little golden egg, really, for what I've seen this success for certain clients. Each time you step into almost a bit of a panic mode, or a self-destruct mode, or you telling yourself that you're not good enough or you've failed again. And I want you to use it throughout the year, throughout the week, throughout the day, whatever. And it's whenever you feel you're failing or you've failed. This is where I go a little too deep, so I will apologise ahead of time before I start that. Now, the first requirement of the first week, and I cannot stress the importance of this is important. Please don't start a diet. Please don't try and give up cigarettes, alcohol, etc. I will guide you through giving up anything. I have 15 years experience of working with drug and alcohol clients. I have worked with addiction at its worst and addiction at its lowest. And I have many years' study on this subject, so I will help you kick the habits. But you have to promise me first that you will respect the wishes I'm asking you, and you will take it day by day as I'm asking you. And I will say to you, your ability of success to give up whatever you want to give up, be it a behaviour, be it eating, cigarettes, alcohol, whatever, can only be successful if you change what hasn't worked before. So, what I'm going to ask of you is to implement a pattern of behaviour, and I know that a lot of you are already doing this, but I want you to truthfully ask yourself whether you've done it exactly as required. I would like to start as simple as I can with you and ask you from tomorrow morning to start with a cup of warm lemon water, to drink that as soon as you get up. Now, the other point there is, whilst you're drinking that, I request that you sit and you connect with what you have that's positive in your life. Now, I know that some of you may have already done this for a number of days, but I'm asking you to start an actual 7-day program of drinking. Now, be careful if you have arthritis. If you have arthritis, a couple of slices of ginger in warm water, a full cup, and I'd like you to drink that before anything else is done in the morning. Once you've done 7 days of that, and you have committed to that, you are ready to move on to stage 2, which will be recorded in 7 days' time. And that will be available to you in 7 days' time. If you do not do the water drinking on one of the days, I want you to go back to day 1 and start it again until you do 7 days. If you cheat yourself at any point on this particular program will not work for you. So there's no point listening to these recordings. I cannot stress that enough. I am looking to create a brand new neurological pathway within your brain, and that takes persistence, time, and very, very, very small steps. If you don't carry that out in the way it's required, so if you have it after your coffee, that isn't at day 1. You go back to day 1 and you start it again until you manage to do it every morning for 7 mornings before you have anything else. I apologise for going on about that, but it's so crucial in the studies that I've spent 3 months studying for this program. In fact, it's been 2 years in the making. So trust me when I say this requires exact science. Now, I do want to just talk you through what I would call maybe a small meditation or a small mindfulness talk. This is an exercise that I've given to a number of clients, and this is to almost help perspective, because what we do as human beings is we are very good at blowing things out of proportion, because what we do is we live in our own worlds, which is a very positive thing. And when we start reaching week 5 and 6 in this program, I'm going to be using the fact that we come from a selfish place, but it's not selfish. So what I would like to explain, or what I would like you to do, and if you're driving, please clearly don't do this, but stop the recording and listen to it later when you are not responsible for any vulnerable person, when you can totally switch off, and when you're not clearly operating machinery or a car for that matter. So I just want you to sit with yourself. I just want you to relax. And I just want you to be aware of, so if you are highly anxious, closing your eyes may be uncomfortable. And if that's the case, just focus on a point on the wall. But if you can, kind of close your eyes. It just helps you focus on the words. And as a human being, I want you to just feel how you're sitting. I want you to feel how your posture is showing itself to you. Don't adjust anything yet. just be aware of your posture. So I first of all want to bring your attention to your forehead and your eyebrows. Just be aware of whether you're holding them tight or whether you're frowning, or whether you are able to relax them any more than they are now. Now, this here is a true identity of what we feel during the day, because we receive information through our eyes. And actually, we give a lot away in our eyes and our brows. And this is where a lot of tension sits. But this is also where our brain is directly attached to, because the neurological pathway, the nerve endings that trigger in the face are directly linked to the brain. So it's very important to try and bring the face back to a neutral position. Because if you have a furrowed brow, you're telling your brain there's something wrong. So that puts you in a higher state of anxiety just in itself. Now also be aware of the shoulders, this is a big one. And also be aware of how tight you're holding your head. We don't need to hold our head tight. We don't need to force our shoulders to hold our head up. It does it all by itself. So just allow them shoulders and that neck. Just imagine the muscles just almost letting go, and just trust the body in doing what it needs to do for itself. Let the tension out of the shoulders. Stop holding yourself so tight. Now be aware of the fingers and the wrists. If you shook your arm now, would your hand flop about? Or would it be held very tight and straight? Because really what it should do is when you shake your arm down the side of you, your hand and your fingers should flick about. But we hold a lot of tension in the hands as well. So just try and flick the tension out of your hands. And I'm not going to do a full meditation in body scanning and releasing tension, but I just want you to allow the body just to release any tension at all in the lower back, in the spine, in the thighs, in the calves, and in the feet. Just release it. You're not preparing to fight anybody. So your muscles don't need to be tense. Let go. Now I want you to be aware of the thoughts that flick in and out of the brain. And I'm just going to sit for a moment, and I just want you to be aware of how quickly your thoughts come in and out. So I wonder how many thoughts flicked in your mind in those few seconds. Now I want you to just become aware of yourself. You can open your eyes now if you want to, or you can keep them closed. Now I want you to become aware of yourself just sitting in your room that you're sitting in. And you'll be aware of the worries you've got or the problems that you're facing at the moment. You'll be naturally aware of them. You may not be actively thinking about them, but you'll be aware of them. Just allow them to sit around you. Don't try and force them out. They're there, they're real for you. So don't try and pretend they're not there. but don't allow them to wrap themselves around your brain and dominate the thought. Now just try and align the physical body, and you've probably tensed up again, so just release the tension in the body and just align the body with the brain. Just think of the brain with the body. This is you. There will be very little opportunity for you to actually meet you. I want you to see you. This is who you are. With all your judgments about yourself, with all your feelings and your subconscious feelings about yourself, with the physical bits that you'll be griping about, and the way you think, and some of you will be telling yourselves off for letting your mind flutter away. But just be with you. When other people flick in your mind, that's fine, because it's part of you. But don't let them wrap themselves around your brain. Just keep coming back to you. Keep coming back to the body attached to the brain, and release the tension from the body. I'm going to be quiet for a moment to give you a chance to find a way in which you can connect with yourself. Don't chastise yourself for allowing thoughts in, or if you get carried away with one thought. Just be aware of it and just come back to you, the brain attached to you, the way the brain thinks, the way the body holds itself. And then leave the thoughts and come back to you. Let the tension go in the body, come back to you. Come back to you again. Relax the body. Be aware of the breath. Come back to you. Be aware of you. Now just start being aware of the breath and relax yourself and just sit and become aware of the room. And I want to do a very quick exercise for you. I'd like you to be aware of yourself sitting in the room and think of the problems you're facing and how big they feel to you. Now you really need to engage in this exercise for this to work in the mind. So if you could feel the feeling and the anxiety inside you about this problem, I want you to try and think about how big this would feel. If it was a box or a shape sitting inside you, how big is it and how heavy is it? And now I want to think about you in that room and in that house you're in. And think about how many people are in the house. So there's you, your problem, and there may be one or two people in the house. How big's the problem inside of you? Just take some visualising. So this takes some of your imagination here. Now I want you to think about how many people there are in your street. Roughly how many people are there? And now line you all up and stand you in the middle of them. Is there just maybe 40, 50, 60? Have you got a huge street? Is there 1,000 maybe? Put you in the middle of them. Group them all together. Think of your problem. Really attach yourself to the problem. How big does your problem feel to you at the moment? Maybe the same, it may feel as heavy. Now I want you to think about yourself with the amount of people in your village or your town. So there's probably maybe about 7,000 or 8,000 people in my village. So I'd imagine myself with 7,000 people standing around me. Now I want you to think about you in the middle of that village. Feel your problem. How does it feel? Is it changing? Is it lighter? Is it heavier? Now I want you to think about how many of the people there are in your county. I've got quite a large county, so mine's maybe about 5 million people in my county. To put myself in the middle of those, think of my problem. How does it feel to me? How big is it? Is it as heavy? Is it heavier? Is it bigger? Is it smaller? Now I want you to think about how many people there are in your country. For mine, as a rough guess, I would say maybe 60 million people in the UK-ish. I'm probably maybe totally off there. But so I'm going to stand in the middle of 60 million people. And think of my problem and wonder how big my problem is. Now think about how many people there are in the world and put yourself surrounded by the people in the world. And I'm going to have a guesstimate at that now, and maybe way off. Maybe are we 7 billion-ish? But place myself in amongst 7 billion people. How big does my problem feel now? So the reason for this exercise is actually we can get carried away with ourselves in our world, and we may have a very, very sad problem. We may have a very challenging problem and be extremely scared by it. But actually, we need to be aware of the universe we live in and how big that really is. and not to go too deep into it, but something I really want you thinking about is actually, do you ever sit and think about the creation of the world? About whatever the belief is of you, Big Bang, two cells forming together to create more organisms? Go back to that creation, how that was formed, how we've come through the world. Think about the universe. Is Earth the only planet? The only living species? We're like an ant, even smaller than an ant in our existence, aren't we? On the Earth. Tinsy tiny as an individual. We're facing these problems like they are the size of the world. But when we look at the size of the world, are they the size of the world? So next week's session, I want to start looking at how we view the world around us, and maybe that might be, the makeup of that might be what's going wrong in how we want to progress in our own world. So I'd like to thank you today. I'd like to encourage you very much to stick to the plan and trust in me for the change you're wanting to see. And I'd like to thank you, wish you good luck for the 7 days ahead. And I will be looking forward to speaking to many of you very soon.